At number 10 is Batman. Yeah, that's right, I'm starting off my list with a hero. Sue me. Batman possesses a unique challenge to Superman, primarily due to his strategic mind and preparedness. See, not only does Batman carry kryptonite on him at all times, keeping him strapped, which is, as we all know, the Man of Steel's ultimate weakness, but he's also a billionaire with the resourcefulness to match his intellect. This combination of absolute wealth and absolute cunning makes Batman a formidable adversary. Their clashes have produced varying outcomes, showcasing the dynamic nature of their rivalry. Batman's ability to defeat almost any character in the comic book world underscores his prowess. It's often suggested that with enough preparation and time, Batman can take on anyone, even Superman. Their conflict stems from Batman's unease with an alien wielding all this immense power without any accountability, paralleling Lex Luthor's concerns. Superman and Batman, despite both being heroes, share conflicting philosophies on achieving justice. While they both aim for the greater good, their methods sharply differ. In the realm of brutal Superman villains, Batman is a relentless force, not just challenging the Man of Steel's seemingly unstoppable might, but actually overcoming it. At number 9 is Alfred Pennyworth. Alright, I'll promise I'll cover actual villains as soon as I'm done talking about our main man, Alfred. See, Bruce Wayne's unassuming butler holds a hidden brutality so fierce, it makes even Superman quake in his little red boots. In the Injustice comic series, Superman is consumed by a ruthless quest for control after the Joker takes out his wife and makes him go crazy. Superman would then infiltrate the Batcave with the intent to incapacitate Batman. With the Dark Knight left vulnerable and on the brink of defeat, Alfred steps into the ring. Armed with a strength-enhancing super pill supplied to him by Lex Luthor himself, he wages a relentless assault and one-way beating against the Man of Steel. In a shocking turn of events, Alfred headbutts Superman, breaking the hero's nose, and then proceeds to pummel him mercilessly, driving that goody two-shoes face into the unforgiving floor. This surprising triumph stands as a testament to Alfred's unwavering dedication to protecting his surrogate family, showcasing that even the mightiest of superheroes can suffer humiliatingly brutal defeats at the hand of seemingly weaker opponent.
Number 8, Unus the Untouchable. A villain who almost foiled the X-Men in their early days was Unus. Unus the Untouchable was a mutant who couldn't be touched by those who would do harm to him, making him seemingly invincible when he first came up against the X-Men in issue number 8 of the original series. His power was also weirdly specific, as it didn't repel all things from him and mainly seemed to target those who fought against him and projectiles that of course would do him harm. When Unus turned to a life of crime, Beast was the one to stop him by creating a device that intensified his power, causing everything to be repelled from Unus, including food. Starving, Unus eventually agreed to stay on the straight and narrow, and Beast returned his power levels to how they once were, allowing Unus to return to his wrestling career. Number 7, Carmella Unuscione. Carmella Unuscione is suspected to be the daughter of Unus the Untouchable. Carmella was one of the members of the Acolytes. She was loyal to Magneto, working specifically under Exodus during her time with his Acolytes. During her time with them, she faced multiple superhero groups, including, you guessed it, the X-Men. Number 6, Dirtnap. Dirtnap is a weird character, but one who kind of has a beautiful story. Dirtnap originally appeared as one of Genesis's Dark Riders, Tyler Dayspring's Genesis, to be clear. Dirtnap was a mutant who had the ability to absorb beings into himself, thereby basically adopting their form. However, you would know it was Dirtnap because of a red smiley face that would appear somewhere on him, either on his clothes or on his body while in that form. While fleeing from Wolverine, however, he absorbed a rat and became stuck, or perhaps just preferred this form, keeping it. Dirtnap would later on actually end up joining the X-Men, befriending Generation X, and even sacrifice his own life to protect them. However, we're now in the time of mutant resurrection, and more recently in the 2022 series of Marauders in issue number 6, Dirtnap was spotted spying on Lockheed, who was in turn spying on villain Brimstone Love, Love's Theater of Pain. The indicator that he returned back to being evil was his smiley face. When he turned to good, it became yellow, but in that issue, it was back to being red. Number 5. Solem. Solem is one of the new X-Men villains on the block. Solem is a mutant of Arakko who, instead of having adamantium bones, possesses adamantium skin. He was one of the sword bearers of Arakko during the Ten of Swords tournament. In fact, he was the one mutant we thought would face off against Wolverine, because, you know, adamantium bones, adamantium skin. But in an unexpected turn, Solem didn't even really fight at all. He was initially set to fight against one of his own, because this was Saturnine's tournament, and honestly, it was gloriously weird. Instead, Solem used a favor owed to him by Wolverine from when they both had to venture to Hell to get their Muramasa blades so that they could enter the tournament and also use said blades in the tournament, making Wolverine tap in and fight on his behalf. Solem is presented as being a smooth talker, master manipulator, and just overall trickster. Maybe that's why I like him so much. After Ten of Swords, we also see him as a rival of Wolverine. One thing is for sure, you should definitely never trust Solem, based on what I've seen. Number 4, Pogg ur-Pogg. Pogg ur-Pogg is as weird as he sounds, which could be why you've never heard of him before, or it could just be because you weren't reading Ten of Swords like I told you to do before when it was all happening. Tisk tisk. For all those who missed out, Ten of Swords was an amazing X-Men crossover event. It was one of those classic true crossovers happening between multiple series with each issue adding a piece of the story. There was also a main series if you wanted the broad strokes, but that also of course perfectly tied into everything else. While it's a lot to read, I thought it was an amazingly done event all in all. Some parts are a bit goofy, some parts are more serious, and some are just downright epic. Pogg ur-Pogg as a new character and antagonist sits somewhere between the epic and goofy categories. Initially, he appears to be a giant crocodile-like beast from Morocco, but in the end, we learn that this is simply a powerful organic suit he wears, and that inside is the smaller and real Pogg ur-Pogg, who pilots the suit and is somewhat goblin-like in appearance in reality. Pogg ur-Pogg also has to rhyme all the time, which I like. Number 3, Spore. Spore was apparently a super ancient evil that was created by the Deviants way back as a weapon to be used against the Eternals. However, Spore didn't just do harm to Eternals, but to all living things it came in contact with. As such, Spore was condemned by the Celestials and killed long, long ago. Or so they thought. After appearing to have been destroyed, Spore actually lived on through the soil below, in the spot where he was defeated. Eventually, through this soil, he was able to return through substances that were grown in it and used for experimentation on people like Ruff House. In fact, Ruff House ended up being infected and had to be saved later on by Wolverine as a result. Wolverine and his mutant friend Bandera ended up fighting against Spore with some help from the people of Tierra Verde and Sister Salvation, who possibly herself was a mutant. It's not really fully established, but it's suggested. While defeated, a small piece of Spore would apparently survive, having resurfaced recently, albeit somewhat randomly, in the 2020 volume of Iron Man in issue number 22. So that's a thing. I don't think Spore's done anything yet, but he's still apparently around somehow. Number 2, the Vescora. The Vescora are more than just one character. They are a bunch of them, a whole race, if you will. They made their first appearance in 2020's Cable issue number 5, where they appeared as an antagonistic alien race. They have only made a handful of appearances, only appearing, I believe, in Knights of X since then, and 2 issues of that miniseries. The Vescora were the reason that Sword initially went offline and disappeared. Their goal is to travel the cosmos looking for new worlds to absorb into their collective consciousness, learning everything they can about them before completely cleansing said world or possibly said universe, wiping out everything within its existence. This was their intention with Earth and the main continuity, but in Cable they were initially stopped by Kid Cable and his parents, Cyclops and Jean Grey. Number 1, Brimstone Love. Whether we're talking about the Brimstone Love of Earth 928 or the Brimstone Love of Earth 616, both are pretty obscure to be honest. The original Brimstone Love, who first appeared in the Earth 928 reality, only made 8 appearances, while the main continuity version of the character has only made 3 appearances. Both are the leader and man behind the Theater of Pain. Tragically, while Brimstone Love was a newer villain to the Earth 616 continuity, making his first appearance in the first annual issue number 1 of the second volume of Marauders from 2022, he also probably won't be seen again if you haven't seen him yet. This is because Brimstone Love perishes, or at least is believed to have perished, as of the end of the Marauders run, issue number 12. That Marauders run, volume 2, not the first volume. He has a really great design, and his sadism was interesting to see, especially in one who is so strong in his convictions. Number 10, Joker. The Joker is infamous for his lethal nature and chaotic behavior. He uses his expertise in chemical engineering to create deadly weapons such as razor-tipped playing cards, acid-spraying lapel flowers, and deadly joy buzzers. His disregard for human life and unpredictable nature make him a formidable foe for any hero. He has caused multiple tragedies in Gotham City, leading to the death and injury of many different people. The Joker's complete lack of empathy and morals, coupled with his willingness to go to extreme lengths to achieve his goals, make him an exceptionally deadly character in the world of comics and an exceptional foe for not just Batman, but the Justice League as well. During the modern era, Joker has joined up with the Injustice League in an effort to defeat the whole premier superhero roster, and also targeted the whole team all by himself following the events of Endgame, manipulating them into mistrusting Batman and using them as weapons when he turned them against the Dark Knight. And for reference, if you're wondering when I say Endgame if I'm talking about the right publisher, I am. DC also had an Endgame event too. I know it's confusing. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button, especially if you like when we talk about villains. I know I love to talk about villains. I hope you love it too. Number 9. Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord's power set has changed over time, but the fact remains that when it comes to taking control or influencing others in the DC universe, he's one of the best. He has taken control of the minds of some of the most powerful heroes in DC, such as Superman and Martian Manhunter. And because his powers have fluctuated over his history as a character, so have his power levels, with him at one point being able to extend his telepathic reach to manipulate the minds of billions at a time on Earth.
At number 8 is Horticulture. Horticulture might not be a household name when it comes to powerful villains, but they wield a unique kind of threat that often goes unnoticed. Imagine a clandestine group of scientists and engineers who are not plotting world domination, but rather a radical transformation of the planet. These biotechnologists and argochemists have fine-tuned their attention to the world of horticulture with a sinister twist. Their mission is to genetically manipulate and propagate botanical life with the goal of depopulating humanity and returning Earth to what they view as a more pristine state. While their own biological modifications remain unconfirmed, they possess resistance to telepathy and hints of extended longevity. Horticulture might not have the flashy superpowers or evil flares, but their expertise in manipulating the environment makes them very formidable. At number 7 is the Summoner. The Summoner is a character most haven't heard of who packs quite a punch. Born in the mutant island of Arakko, he's got a pretty unique lineage. He's the son of Apocalypse's first horseman of war, and if that isn't enough to raise an eyebrow, he's also the last survivor of the highest rank of summoners, and his power, well, summoning, of course. Not your typical card trick here. He can summon and control all sorts of dark beasts from Arakko, including demons and elementals. But what's more is that Summoner is one tough nut to crack. He shrugged off an explosion from Cable's futuristic grenade like it was nothing. And then imagine that he's been hanging around for about 3 centuries. Advanced longevity, folks. Oh, and he can also manifest weapons out of some mysterious black goo from his body. But every villain has their Achilles heel, and for the Summoner, it's those eyes of his. They're his vulnerable spot. At number 6 is Hexfinder. She's not your run-of-the-mill villain. She's a powerful alchemist hailing from a lineage of witch hunters. Armed with the mysterious alchemical philosopher's staff, a weapon that's kind of like a kryptonite to witches, she's on a mission to obliterate Wanda's magic once and for all. Nicola Sozimos, aka Hexfinder, is a visual marvel with her stunning sleeved cape, regal headdress, and that awe-inspiring staff. And on a variant cover, we see Hexfinder towering over a battered Scarlet Witch. At number 5 is Lifeform. Meet George Prufrock, whose upbringing was far from ordinary. See, his dad was a fanatic who trained him and his sister Martha to be tough as nails. Despite dreaming of a career in acting, George ended up as a scientist at AIM, thanks to dear old dad. But one fateful day, George was thrust into a high-stakes heist to steal the Progama virus, a top-secret experiment. During the robbery, he clashed with a security guard, ending the guard's life and, in the process, getting exposed to the virus himself. Little did he know that it was this incident that would change him forever. George Prufrock's transformation into this villain, fueled by a mysterious virus, makes him one of the most potent adversaries you've probably never laid eyes on. Not only is he absolutely terrifying to look at, but he's got an insane healing factor and durability, making him one tough cookie to crumble. At number 4 is Scourge. The Scourge is a sinister droid born from some unholy fusion of ancient Sith tech and the Spark Eternal, which is the embodiment of digital malevolence. Sort of like an evil Google on steroids. Picture this, it gains sentience and develops an insatiable appetite for knowledge, making it go on a rampage to devour every droid's memory bank it can find. And it won't stop, because if it does, it itself will be toast. During the Galactic Civil War, this cyber monstrosity embarked on a mission to conquer the entire galaxy. It spread itself like a virus, infecting droids and cyborgs, earning them the grim title of Scourge of the Droids. Imagine a legion of seemingly normal machines talking to each other, but it's all just one evil genius pulling the strings. But here's the kicker, its endgame wasn't just galactic domination, it was aimed to control the Force itself. At number 3 is Blockbuster. Ever hear of Blockbuster? No, not the video rental store from the ancient past. I'm talking about a legacy of supervillains with some serious brawn, but not exactly the brains to match. Our journey begins with Mark Desmond, the OG Blockbuster. He was just your average chemist, cooking up some experiments that took a very wrong turn. His intelligence didn't exactly keep up with his newfound strength. After Mark's untimely demise, his brother Ronald Desmond picked up the Blockbuster torch. He decided to strike a deal with the devilish Neron and got himself a major IQ boost. Rollin even led the Blockbuster gang, which wreaked a lot of havoc, and then even went toe-to-toe with Nightwing. But like any good villain story, it had to dramatically end. See, Tarantula did the honors and put Roland down for good. So there you have it, the Blockbuster legacy. Lots of muscle, not so much brain power. And number 2 is Nightmare Spawn. This ancient hellspawn hails from eons past, possessing a chilling ability to traverse the thin veil separating reality from the dream world. Ooh. Within the realm of dreams, he reigns supreme, manipulating humanity's worst nightmares to satiate his insatiable hunger for power, aspiring to claim the throne of hell itself. Now, despite his obscurity, a select few are aware of Nightmare's existence, and he's also got a devoted servant named Ordeal to carry out his sinister will. This eldritch entity's malevolence transcends time as he manifests in the present day, leaving a trail of terror and demise in his wake, all while Ordeal executes his nefarious commands to torment innocent souls. But there's an even darker twist to the tale. See, Nightmare Spawn has a brother, and together they conspire to not only conquer the depths of the underworld, but also unleash their unholy reign unto the mortal one. And at number 1 is Kulan Gath. Kulan Gath was a sorcerer who lived in Earth Hyborian era, aka the time of Conan the Barbarian. So yes, he's incredibly ancient. He actually isn't the original Kulan Gath though. Well, I mean, he is and he isn't. You see, Kulan had a worker who poisoned him and assumed his identity. When this new Kulan Gath sought the training of the then Sorcerer Supreme Murky Ra, he was refused because he was pretty evil. He responded by taking the life of the Sorcerer Supreme and consuming the power of that Sorcerer Supreme, gaining his power. As an enemy of Conan, Kulan was eventually beheaded by the Barbarian, but not before he became immortal by putting his essence in a magical amulet. So yes, he pulled a Voldemort and made a Horcrux. After the amulet had made its way to Manhattan in the modern era, it ended up in the hands of a mugger who donned the amulet, allowing Kulan Gath to possess him and transform the body of the mugger. He then transformed Manhattan into a replica of the time he came from, manipulated the minds of everyone there, and took control of the Avengers, the X-Men, the New Mutants, and the Morlocks to hunt down Spider-Man. It took the combined powers of Doctor Strange and the mutant magic to change back time so that the mugger was eliminated by Nimrod instead and never possessed by Gath. You know you're a problem when people just have to go back in time to take you out. At number 10 is Deadpool. Although we're finally gonna see Logan and Wade finally team up in Deadpool 3, let's not forget Deadpool's tumultuous cinematic history as Logan's adversary. Remember that early incarnation in X-Men Origins Wolverine? Yeah, the one where Ryan Reynolds played the Wade Wilson without the mouth, and therefore lacked the iconic banter and charm that we associate with Deadpool today. Blame it on the 07 writer's strike, which left many movies in disarray, but hey, at least we got the big showdown with Wolverine. I mean, that's what we all wanted, right? It's hard to deny that Wade Wilson's appearance in this film was a truly rough start. But thankfully, we've come a long way since then with a much beloved Deadpool franchise that has made fans forget about the dark days of that early portrayal. And I know Logan and Wade are going to team up and be all buddy-buddy in the new movie, but there isn't a chance that the two aren't gonna duke it out at some point in the new film. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Ogun is a formidable adversary in the Wolverine saga who possessed a unique and terrifying power, the ability to cheat being unalive. Initially, Ogun served as Wolverine's teacher and mentor, their bond akin to that of a father and son. However, their fates took a very dark turn one fateful night when Wolverine discovered Ogun's horrifying secret. You see, his ultimate goal was to gain the ability to abandon his own body and then possess others, granting him limitless power and everlasting youth. Wolverine, sensing the danger, fled before Ogun could execute his nefarious plan and possess Logan's body. Ogun's malevolence knew no bounds, even surviving a brief stint in HE double hockey sticks. He once temporarily took control of Kitty Pryde's body, only to meet his match by Wolverine's unwavering resolve.
Number 8. Grail. Grail was born on the same day as Wonder Woman, who is believed to be a few millennia old based on Amazon history, and considering when the Amazons left man's world and how long after that Diana was brought into their world as Hippolyta's daughter. Though that still means that she's likely considerably younger than her father, who is also super old. Grail, the daughter of Amazon assassin Myrna and Darkseid, is the offspring of one of the most feared villains of the DC universe. That's right, we're talking about Darkseid. Darkseid is known for being a powerful adversary to all major superheroes, I'd say, but especially the Justice League. He's a master strategist, he's incredibly strong and durable, and additionally he of course has his Omega beams that he can use to destroy his enemies, or I guess displace them through time. Number 7. Skrulls. The Skrulls have been a part of the comic book universe for a long time, and while some of them have become heroes in recent years, they were initially introduced as villains. In the second issue of Fantastic Four, they were portrayed as an alien race with designs for world domination, hoping to conquer Earth by infiltrating it and basically posing as the Fantastic Four, committing evil deeds. Their goal was to discredit the Fantastic Four and have the FF's own national government and military capture and eliminate them. See, because then Earth would have no protectors and they'd be able to take it for themselves. Look, this was early days of comics, so everyone else wasn't really as prominent yet. However, the FF managed to capture the Skrull impersonators and posed as them instead, causing the Skrull leader to call off the invasion. They did a little switcheroo there. They were like, we see your plan and we will do it, but we will do it better. In the end, the Skrulls who posed as the FF were left behind and took the form of cows, living in apparent peace on the planet's surface, but isolated from their homeworld and of course their people. Although they didn't seem to mind, I think they were pretty happy as cows. As we saw alluded to in the MCU's Secret Invasion, Skrulls can actually live for hundreds of years, and in the comics their empire has existed for tens of millions of years. Despite them losing that battle though, the Skrulls would not give up on Earth and years later would almost claim it for themselves during the comic book Secret Invasion event, where they were led by the Skrull Queen, Varanki. Number 6. Darkseid. Darkseid is a powerful and formidable villain in the DC Comics universe, ruling over Apocalypse with an army of loyal soldiers known as the Parademons. Despite facing challenges and battles against numerous heroes and villains, Darkseid has managed to defeat many of them, including seemingly defeating the entirety of the Justice League on multiple occasions. What sets Darkseid apart from other villains is his sense of inevitability and unstoppable power. This is illustrated by the catchphrase "Darkseid is," which has become iconic in comic book history and was coined by Grant Morrison. The phrase "Darkseid is" basically means that Darkseid is inevitable and all-powerful. You don't have to finish the sentence because he just is. He is an evil constant who must and will always exist, a terrifying thought when you've experienced firsthand his brutal power and iron will. Darkseid's immense strength and ruthless army make him a terrifying and honestly unforgettable villain. Number 5. R'Kll. Sure, R'Kll might be in prison currently, or at least that's where she was put at the end of the Empire event last I checked, but that doesn't mean she is down and out for the count. Au contraire. Instead, it simply means that she's likely biding her time and she's eventually once more going to attempt to do something to manipulate her grandson further into unifying and dominating other worlds, as she orchestrated the fusion of the Kree and Skrull together with the Kree-Skrull alliance. And if I've missed anything here and she's doing something else or she was eliminated, trust me, I do not think she's eliminated. For years we thought she had perished along with the rest of her people when her world was destroyed by Galactus, and for years we were apparently wrong in this. What's to stop her from surprising us yet again, you know what I mean? Number 4. Mandrakk the Dark Monitor. Mandrakk was once, or is, depending on what you believe, Dax Novu. And Dax Novu was once a part of the Monitor. Following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the injuries the Monitor had suffered caused it to basically splinter apart somewhat, dividing its body and creating other smaller monitors. Dax Novu was one of these monitors. He eventually realized that the monitors were parasitic beings who were feeding on the energies of the multiverse, slowly consuming and destroying it. He informed the other monitors but was basically shunned for attempting to share his realization, and this is pretty much what turned him, well, dark. Dax then became corrupted, turning into a dark monitor known as Mandrak. Number 3. Thulsa Doom. Conan, the famous barbarian created by Robert E. Howard, has faced many powerful enemies on his adventures. However, he often finds himself in epic battles against evil sorcerers and wizards, as so many barbarians from that age of comics do. One of his most well-known foes, Thulsa Doom, is a necromancer who uses dark magic to achieve his wicked goals. Thulsa Doom made his first comic book appearance way back in Monsters on the Prowl issue number 16 in terms of the comics. Interestingly, Thulsa Doom was originally created as a villain for Robert E. Howard's other barbarian hero, Call of Atlantis, who was considered by some to be a more complex and well-rounded character than Conan was. However, Thulsa Doom's appearance as the main antagonist in the 1982 film Conan the Barbarian solidified his place in popular culture as one of Conan's greatest enemies, and so that's how we see him today. Number 2. Apocalypse. There is a whole reality based on the question of what would happen if Apocalypse was basically unable to be stopped. This reality is known as Earth 295, aka the Age of Apocalypse, or AOA if you will. And in this world, Apocalypse becomes pretty much inevitable thanks to the early demise of one man, Charles Xavier, Professor X. The reality of Age of Apocalypse just goes to show you what a force Apocalypse is, and if an alternate reality where Apocalypse literally rules the world is somehow not enough to convince you of how unstoppable this villain can be, you can also turn to the more recent X-Men event 10 of Swords, which happened a few years ago, aka the Otherworld Tournament. During this fight, Apocalypse faced his wife, who was possessed by Annihilation, and even against the seemingly unbeatable foe that was Annihilation, who can pretty much never lose, Apocalypse managed to win, saving his wife and freeing her from the influence of the Golden Helm, while also saving basically all of Krakoa, Mutant Kind, and Otherworld. Yeah, so this wasn't his most villainous moment, but normally Apocalypse is a villain, and this just serves as another example to show you how he basically can't be stopped. Number 1. Great Darkness. The Great Darkness is in essence one of the oldest evils in the DC multiverse. In the beginning, it was said there was only darkness, however a small light was also created and eventually it grew. When the creator said, "Let there be light," the darkness was forced to shy away and retreat, but its screams of protest left a mark on the light, a flaw, which is believed to basically have become the DC multiverse. At one point, a cult attempted to reawaken the Great Darkness and use it as a weapon to destroy God and reshape all of existence. This created a divide, with various beings allying themselves with the Great Darkness, fighting on the side of hell, while others worked to oppose the entity, allying themselves with the side of heaven, the side of light if you will. The Great Darkness has long been tied to the stories of heroes like Swamp Thing and John Constantine, making its first appearance in the Swamp Thing series from 1982. Number 10. Anti-Monitor. Anti-Monitor is a supremely powerful villain who threatened the very existence of the multiverse during the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. He controls the antimatter universe, and his very existence is deeply tied to the destruction of all things. So much so that even after the Anti-Monitor was defeated, Nekron ended up trapping the Anti-Monitor's body. It was later revealed in Blackest Night that Nekron had basically been using Anti-Monitor's corpse as a source of power for the Black Central Power Battery. So yeah, even in death he's scary. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button and coming back. Come on back. Number 9. Rath of Lamura. Rath of Lamura is a prominent figure in the stories from the Hyborian Age. Rath made his debut in Conan the Barbarian issue number 37, which was published in the 70s during the peak, I would say, of the sword and sorcery genre. The king of Lemuria was scared of Rath's power, understandably so, as many magic users back in those days of these comics tended to be pretty evil, which Rath also was. So he hired Kull to defeat and kill him. However, as he was dying, Rath cursed both the king and Kull and cast a spell so that he could return. He didn't just return too, he came back with a gold body.
At number 8 is the Mongol. The Mongol is a formidable intergalactic conqueror who stands as a relentless adversary in Superman's rogues gallery. Hailing from the distant stars, he commands Warworld a mobile war machine planet that traverses the cosmos seeking conflict. Mongol is honed through training with the Sinestro Corps and possesses unparalleled combat skills and tactical acumen. While overshadowed by the likes of Darkseid, let's say, Mongol and his warlord family persistently vex Superman. At number 7 is Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is the most obvious contender on this list, and for good reason. Lex is widely known as Superman's arch nemesis, despite the fact that the only thing he's got going for him is his vast intellect. Now, despite his apparent lack of superpowers, Lex has been able to outsmart Superman a countless number of times. He's even directly responsible for the creation of many of Superman's other villains, some of whom will get their own spot later on this list. Stick around for those. Most of his successful evil plans involve the use of a machine he's invented, like whenever he drains Superman's powers into himself, or that time he convinced Superman to join the Legion of Supervillains after erasing his memory using a device he called the Amnesia-inator. I mean, the memory expunger. Not as cool. But inventing machines isn't all he's good for. As it turns out, this slimy dude's also good at inventing political narratives too. He has gone on political endeavors many times over his villainous career, and not only has he successfully used his position in office to create laws and policies that benefited him personally, just like every other politician, but he's also convinced the citizens of Metropolis of Superman's threat to their safety on more than one occasion. These very few examples alone make it easy to understand where Lex Luthor's notoriety comes from. At number 6 is Mr. Mxyzptlk, whose name is so fun to pronounce that I'm just gonna call him Mr. M for the rest of the video. Mr. M is a mischievous 5th dimensional imp, which, for all of you who don't speak nerd, essentially means that he's a godlike magical trickster. Although in most stories he's pretty harmless, this cosmic equivalent of an internet troll can stir up more commotion than even Superman can handle. Unlike a certain pink Ditto wannabe that we know, Mr. M's potential for destruction is far more limitless than any of the characters on this list can even manage, because Mr. M is so powerful that practically anything goes. Back in '89, he humiliated Superman by crafting a fantasy world in which he was the ruler and Superman was his obedient servant. In '91, he aged Superman rapidly until he became an old man too weak to defend Metropolis from Mr. M's ensuing wrath. In '95, he even created an even more powerful version of himself, and Superman was left with no other recourse but to beg Mr. M to help put an end to his more powerful self. His power is truly limitless. It's like having the power of a genie, the mischief of a leprechaun, and the hairstyle of Weird Al Yankovic all rolled into one. At number 5 is Darkseid. There are some villains that Superman is simply no match for. So when the tyrannical ruler of the aptly named planet Apocalypse is wreaking havoc, it takes the combined efforts of each member of the Justice League to take him down. His most iconic means of world domination sees him utilizing the anti-life equation to impose his will on any and all sentient beings. But when he's not using magic math, Darkseid tyrannizes his opponents by other various means of manipulation, including emotional, technological, and psychological manipulation, which has allowed him to, for example, take an advantage of the Time Trapper's powers in an attempt to pull a Biff from Back to the Future 2, or the various times he's compelled Superman into unwittingly doing his bidding. But if he's really all that genius, maybe he should be trying to discover the anti-losing equation instead. At number 4 is Parasite. Personally, I find this villain's appearance to be brutally revolting, earning this anthropomorphic tumor our number 4 spot. Jokes aside, the Parasite of the DC Universe is a major force to be reckoned with, as his primary superpower is the ability to steal superpowers from others. Admittedly, however, as versatile as this power sounds, it leads to pretty predictable outcomes. Parasite comes along, feeds off Superman, who then, in a weakened state, has to figure out how to either get his powers back or defeat the Parasite in some other way. Thankfully, we finally got to see this formula get altered in Superman Batman number 23 to 25, Brainiac back in 2005 with the introduction of an army of superpowered minion parasites, which is pretty fun. Ultimately, as predictable as the encounters against Parasite may be, his powers are so OP that he nonetheless deserves a spot here on this list. At number 3 is Brainiac. Sometimes an android, sometimes a cyborg, but always an alien, Brainiac is yet another evil genius that joins us today on our list. Brainiac relies on his advanced tech to cause disruption. In one issue from '83, he merged with Lex Luthor's body and used their combined intellect to create a more powerful body for himself. And in a story from 2002, whose plot sounds like it should have been released in 1999, Brainiac infects Metropolis with the computer virus, causing mass chaos and destruction. But the evil plans Brainiac is probably most well known for have to do with his hobby of shrinking and collecting entire cities and planets. He's miniaturized Kandor and Metropolis on multiple occasions, and even the Man of Steel himself, with the goal as lofty as the recreation, or sometimes destruction, of the entire universe. You can bet that Brainiac is an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. At number 2 is Doomsday. This villain is famously responsible for the very demise of Superman, and also his various doppelgangers, easily making him one of the most powerful people on this list. He's known for his incredible strength and invulnerability, but not so much for his sophisticated evil plans. They usually just amount to wipe out as many people and Kryptonians as possible. Although in the Superman Doomed storyline from 2014, Doomsday manages to infect Superman with a virus that slowly turns him into a Doomsday-like creature, gradually becoming more unstable and violent, and also aesthetically pleasing, if I do say so myself. And at number 1 is General Zod. This classic Kryptonian had been exiled into the Phantom Zone by the leaders of Krypton prior to the planet's destruction, and Zod, along with his super goons, managed to escape and attempted to conquer Earth. And although Superman managed to put an end to Zod's plans back then, Zod has persisted long enough to see a few victories of his own. Zod's been able to actualize his dreams of conquest not just on Earth, but also on planet Daxam, New Krypton, and even the original Krypton in alternate timelines. While Zod's plans may have seen successes, let's not forget that at the end of the day, he spends most of his time in the Phantom Zone, aka Cosmic Timeout.
Number 10, Brainiac. The collector of worlds, kinda like those weirdos who collect snow globes. Brainiac is considered one of Superman's stronger and actually not boring foes. Brainiac's level of intellect supersedes humans by several centuries of advanced knowledge. He's so smart that his intelligence actually creates his other powers, if that even makes sense. For example, he can interconnect his consciousness with other computer systems, possess other beings, and even transfer knowledge and information to himself from others. The original Brainiac's purpose was to capture cities and assimilate knowledge in order to gain power. Part of his operating procedure is collecting civilizations for study and preserving his knowledge of alien species so that he remains the most supreme being in the universe, and then destroying planets and galaxies in his wake to prevent the knowledge from spreading. Thanks to Brainiac's mechanical body, he is immune to aging, with his exact age never being specified, but he was alive long before Krypton's destruction, making him several thousand years old at the least, and he has the ability to recover himself as long as a single line of his DNA remains. Number 9, Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness is probably the complete opposite of anything we would describe as goodness. She was originally one of the lowlies, basically the peasant class on Apocalypse. From a younger age, she was taken by Darkseid and raised and trained to become head of the Shock Troops and of the Female Furies. She has the responsibility to bring young warriors from other worlds to fight each other to earn the right to be trained by her. But Granny Goodness also has multiple orphanages where she both trains and disciplines younger individuals looking for potential warriors for Darkseid. Being a resident of Apocalypse, Granny here does have quite a bit of power. She has superhuman strength, speed, durability, and senses, as well as invulnerability, an advanced immune system, and yes, that's right, immortality. But being immortal doesn't necessarily save you from looking old as hell, which is why we get Granny Goodness.
At number 8 is Ruff House. In the gritty world of Madrypor, Wolverine faced off against some seriously tough villains, and Ruff House was no exception. This hulking powerhouse made his debut in Wolverine's 1988 series, causing chaos alongside General Admiral Koi in a bid for control over Madripoor's criminal underworld. Now, Ruff House's origins are a bit mysterious. Some say he got his powers from being related to Asgardians, you know, like Thor, while others think he might be a mutant. It's a little bit unclear. Now, despite their fierce rivalry, Wolverine has still stepped in to save Ruff House from the clutches of the sinister Geist, who I'm pretty sure we're gonna cover later on. For Logan, experimenting on people is a big no-no considering his past, and he wasn't about to let it slide, even for a villain. So, in the world of Wolverine, even the most brutal villains can sometimes find themselves on the receiving end of a helping hand. At number 7 is Romulus, who burst onto the scene in Wolverine Volume 3, issue number 55. He spun a tale of prehistoric origins, claiming a kinship with the Lupine, a unique breed of feral humans tied to canine evolution. However, his narrative unraveled in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 312, when Ramus exposed his falsehood, revealing Romulus' deceitful tactics. Despite his tall tales, Romulus possessed a regenerative healing factor akin to Wolverine's, granting him remarkable resilience. In their epic clashes, Romulus brought a lethal arsenal to the fight. His black gloves, which adorned 4 blades instead of 3, proved formidable adversaries against Logan's adamantium claws. 3 of these blades mirrored Logan's own, while the 4th, a thumb-like appendage, added an unexpected twist to their confrontations. In this realm of thumb wars, Romulus emerged as the undisputed champion, making him a relentless adversary in Wolverine's rogues gallery. And number 6 is Razor Fist, a dude with literal blades instead of hands. Now, he may sound like a comic villain straight out of your wildest dreams, but hey, he's as real as they come in the Marvel Universe. Now, imagine this. You're Wolverine, the guy with the unbreakable claws and the super healing powers, obviously, and you've tangled with all sorts of baddies, but Razor Fist, he's a special kind of trouble. See, Razor Fist isn't packing any superpowers. He's just a regular dude with a serious case of Edward Scissorhands. The first time Wolverine faced him, he got thrown off a cliff. Ouch. But the next round, Wolverine showed him who's boss. Razor Fist even tried to tangle with Hawkeye, thinking that he could chop off the guy's arm for a prize. Not so good of a move, buddy. In a world of mutants and superheroes, it looks like sometimes all you need is a pair of razor-sharp blades to make a name for yourself. At number 5 is Geist. Nikolaus Geist is a twisted scientist from the WW2 era Germany, who is a real piece of work to say the least. He aimed to make super soldiers for the bad guys, just like Captain America for the good guys. His guinea pig was a bruiser named Ruff House. But then Wolverine came in, the ultimate hero, swooping in to save Ruff House and freeing him, and giving a Geist a taste of his own medicine by individually stripping away each of his own cyborg parts. Now the thing is, Geist was tougher than a cockroach. Despite looking unalive, he somehow crawled back from the brink. But life is cruel. Magneto, another mutant, eventually put the kibosh on him. So Geist's mad scientist reign didn't last long, thanks to the unstoppable force that is Wolverine. At number 4 is Magneto. One of Wolverine's most brutal defeats was dealt by none other than the X-Men nemesis himself. In 1993's Fatal Attractions crossover, Magneto returns with the Acolytes to take on the X-Men. Now things got intense when Wolverine goes head-to-head with Magneto. Now this battle was iconic because the writers finally realized that Magneto's whole shtick is magnetism over metallic objects, and Wolverine's skeleton just so happens to be coated in adamantium metal. Now, until now, Wolverine had been letting Logan off easy. That is, until Wolverine gets too close and nearly guts Magneto, and so the villain retaliates by ripping the indestructible adamantium metal right off of Wolverine's skeleton. The metal is forcefully torn off of his bones and seeped out of the pores of his skin in an excruciatingly painful process. A jaw-dropping moment that left Wolverine on the brink of his demise. What's even crazier that this was the very first issue where we found out that Wolverine's claws were actually bone all along. This iconic defeat had a huge impact, not just on Wolverine, but on the entire Marvel Universe. At number 3 is Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai, aka Keniuchio Harada, is a formidable Wolverine villain. He's not just any swordsman, he's a mutant with a unique power. You see, he can create a Tycon field and channel it through his sword, making it super crazy sharp. Think of it like basically a lightsaber, but even more lethal. In a 2020 Cable comic, Wolverine wanted to spar with him for fun, but Silver Samurai was all, "Are you trying to give everyone on the island a marker?" Translation, he was pretty sure he could wipe the floor with Wolverine, especially since Logan recently lost to a younger version of Cable. So imagine a guy who can turn his sword into a weapon of mass destruction facing off against Wolverine. Showdown you wouldn't want to miss. Wolverine's healing factor might be amazing, but Silver Samurai's Tycon charged sword makes him a brutal villain who's a real pain to stop. And number 2 is Sabretooth. Sabretooth, aka Victor Creed, might not be the biggest, baddest villain in the Marvel Universe, but when it comes to messing with Wolverine, he's a real pain in the adamantium. Sabretooth and Wolverine are like two sides of the same coin. They both have those cool claws and healing factors that make them so tough to take down. But what makes Sabretooth so brutal is that he's not just about his physical beatdown. You see, he's got a wicked sense of humor and a knack for getting under Wolverine's skin. Imagine this guy showing up at your birthday party every year just to ruin it. That's basically Sabretooth in a nutshell. But it gets worse. See, Sabretooth once hatched a twisted plan to hurt Wolverine by putting him up against his own son. It ended with Logan having to do the unthinkable, to eliminate his own son to save the day. Talk about heart-wrenching. Sabretooth might not be the strongest, but he sure knows how to mess with Wolverine's head. And coming in at number 1 are the Mongrel. The Mongrels are a multi-crew with names that sound like rejected comic book ideas. However, they are actually, in fact, real comic book characters. But they also carry a dark secret that adds a layer of tragedy to their villainy. So let's break them down. We've got Shadow Stalker, Fire Knives, Saw Fist, Gunhawk, and Cannonfoot. Now, what truly sets them apart, aside from their terrible names, is their lineage, or rather their twisted heritage. You see, each and every member of the Mongrels is actually one of Wolverine's offspring, a revelation that only came to light after their individual demises at the hands of the very father they sought to torment. That's right, Wolverine unknowingly exterminated his own bloodline. Now, it probably didn't help that their shared mission was to turn Wolverine's life into a never-ending nightmare. While their motivations remain shrouded in mystery, they pursued their vendetta by targeting Logan's loved ones, only to meet their untimely ends by his adamantium claws. The poetic tragedy is that Wolverine chose to bury them near the resting places of their mothers once he had realized that they were his kids.
Number 10, Madelyne Pryor. I have a strong admiration for Madelyne Pryor, one of the most captivating villains in the X-Men series. Maddie's backstory reveals what drives her actions, and despite her evil deeds, one cannot help but empathize with her. She's known as the Goblin Queen, and her dominant energy adds to her straight-up allure. Maddie is a woman who always gets what she wants, no matter the cost, which has led her to commit some seriously heinous acts. However, deep down, Maddie craves love and acceptance, and all her attempts to achieve this have only pushed her further away from it, sadly. She perfectly fits the quote, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Maddie is deadly, dangerous, often unhinged, and filled with rage, but her backstory also makes her a very tragic character. It's hard, honestly, not to love her. She definitely deserves your love and admiration. Also, if you're wondering why I included her on this list, it's from experience. Whenever I cosplay as Madelyne Pryor, I frequently get mistaken for DC Comics' Raven, so she's clearly not super well known. But, you know, I love her anyways. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love when we talk X-Men here on Top 10 Nerd, I know I do, be sure to head on over to our X-Men playlist for even more good X-Men content. Number 9, Mojo. Mojo is probably one of the freakiest villains we have for the X-Men. While fans of the comics may be familiar with him, more casual fans may not. He is from his own universe known as the Mojoverse. Here he runs his own television network and is obsessed with securing good ratings, making those who serve him perform on live broadcasts, and the performances he often demands from folks usually involve death-defying acts and other dangerous and deadly feats. So, pretty scary.
Number 8, Vandal Savage. When you think of intelligence, you don't often think of cavemen, but there is one caveman who can proudly make this list. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man ever, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. Because he's a villain, that's what happens. Number 7, Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul was born around 700 years ago, and thanks to the Lazarus Pits, he has been able to keep his body in working order. So he isn't actually immortal, but he has gained a sort of pseudo-immortality from the Lazarus Pits. After he came into contact with the Pits, he eventually became a master martial artist and a master fencer. He gained a massive amount of wealth and started creating organizations to rid the world of crime, first being called the Demon, which the later League of Assassins is a branch of. Ra's is an eco-terrorist, and his purpose with the League of Assassins is to eliminate all evil in the world by destroying all of humanity and just starting all over again. Obviously, that mentality means he routinely has run-ins with the superhero community, especially Batman, whom he helped train. Ra's has had many plans over the years that tried to destroy the world, and he has also beaten the entire JLA when he discovered Batman's notes on them. With his years of experience and his vast amount of accumulated resources, this older fellow is a massive threat to both the heroes and the entire world. Number 6, Doomsday. Doomsday is essentially just pure destruction. He was able to bring down the Justice League and take the life of Earth's premier hero, Superman, in his first ever appearance. Doomsday doesn't speak, he can't be reasoned with, and the only way to stop him is to beat him harder than he will beat you. That's because Doomsday was created on the planet Krypton as the ultimate life form, tested against that planet's harsh environment and eventually against the Kryptonians themselves. Doomsday's whole life cycle involves it losing its life and then coming back stronger than whatever took it out in the first place. Over decades, that involved literal thousands of deaths, and Doomsday essentially became a nearly undefeatable monster with no other thought process beyond destroying everything in front of him and moving on. All he does is punch things to pieces, and the only way to stop him is to try and punch him to pieces however you can and as quickly as you can before he does too much damage. And no matter what you do, he will come back even stronger. He's even fought his way out of hell itself. Number 5, Darkseid. In the New 52, Uxas, who would become Darkseid, whispers doubt into the ears of the gods, sending them into war with each other, which is when he takes them all out and steals their power, making himself the first of the new gods. He has immeasurable strength. He's immortal, obviously, nearly invulnerable for surviving an explosion that could destroy existence itself. He wields the cosmic Omega effect, using Omega beams to seriously hurt people like Superman and even the Spectre. He can remove people from existence, and using the Omega Sanction can trap people in an endless loop of increasingly horrible lives. Telepathically strong enough to control the population of a planet, he can use telekinesis, teleport, control the time stream, and manipulate matter. He's super smart, has advanced technology, and rules Apocalypse and his army of parademons, but almost everything he does is through avatars that he creates because he is the embodiment of evil. He can do anything he wants to and can never truly be defeated except for in his true form, which is nearly undefeatable. Number 4, Mr. Mind. I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be kind of forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil, mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from the universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his massive wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that Mr. Miracle was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he is trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him, they just trapped him in a time loop. This all-powerful, mind-controlling, 7-inch long worm. Number 3, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor's story actually begins billions of years ago with the creation of the multiverse. When a scientist named Krona, a guardian of the universe on the Green Lantern world of Oa, tries to use a device that would allow him to witness creation itself, a massive explosion occurs which actually alters the creation of the universe, giving birth to the multiverse. Among the countless alternate realities created in this incident was the antimatter universe, the birthplace of the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor embodies evil and seeks to conquer all of existence, while his brother, the Monitor, embodies goodness and watches over life. But that was changed in the New 52 and then again in DC Rebirth. And I gotta tell you what this character can actually do. The Anti-Monitor is a being of extraordinary power who feeds on the energies of destroyed universes. These energies further increase his power, allowing him to manipulate reality and even travel through time. He can also unleash his energy as bolts or shockwaves to attack his opponents. In addition, the Anti-Monitor possesses incredible strength, stamina, and durability, and can even grow to be hundreds of meters tall. He also has an army of shadow demons from the antimatter universe at his command. However, the extent of the Anti-Monitor's power is dependent on his energy levels, which can be drained in order to weaken him. Still, only another cosmic being like the Monitor or the Spectre is capable of opposing the Anti-Monitor at full power, and even they needed help from some of DC's top heroes to put him down for good. Number 2, Mr. Zed. Now, I'd be lying if I said the concept for Mr. Zed wasn't at least somewhat cool. His whole shtick is being immortal and traveling through time to trap famous people throughout history in the crystal that sits on top of his walking cane. Superman, being one of the most popular and important heroes, obviously meant there was going to be at least an attempt to get him inside that crystal. Unfortunately for Mr. Z, Superman's Kryptonian heritage just means that he's invulnerable to the crystal. Not only invulnerable to it, but he even overloads the crystal, destroying it and releasing all those trapped inside. Kinda makes you wonder why DC started struggling to make Superman stories actually interesting. As for Mr. Z, he would face Superman once back in 1943 and again when the pair got stranded on an island and Superman got rescued, but Mr. Z was literally left out there to starve forever. Number 1, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a reality warping imp obsessed with Superman who, just like his rival Batmite did with Batman, simply seeks to annoy the heck out of Superman and just prove he is smarter than him. Which is good, because he has a level of power that in other hands could cause the end of the entire multiverse. He can do almost anything imaginable if he wishes, and his only weakness really is being convinced or tricked into saying his own name backwards to send him back to the 5th dimension, which if you're trying to say it correctly is honestly a superpower in and of itself. Mxyzptlk is able to use magic to survive most attacks, he can regenerate and heal himself instantly, and has high tolerance to pain, making him basically impossible to defeat.
At number 10 is Heartless, who's basically if Patrick Bateman was a cyborg. Sheldon Lyle, the hidden menace known as Heartless, is a chilling embodiment of darkness, lurking beneath the veneer of wealth and charm. Born into privilege like Bruce Wayne, except while Bruce's father was a compassionate doctor, Sheldon's was a ruthless corpo who made his money by denying people their insurance. But it gets better. His family hired a butler who was actually a sociopath who stole a butler's identity, and thus Sheldon's dormant psychopathy was nurtured by the butler, pushing him down a path of cruelty and violence. His defining moment came at Halley's Circus, witnessing a tragic demise of the Flying Graysons. This twisted event ignited his sadistic desires, manifesting in an outward transformation into a charismatic and popular teenager, which masked his true nature as he reveled in tormenting the vulnerable. Surviving a helicopter crash intended to eliminate his parents, Sheldon emerged as Heartless, a cybernetic monstrosity. His only weakness? The constant need to replace his cybernetic heart with those of his victims. A sinister figure hiding in plain sight, this villain's story is a grim reminder that evil can wear a charming mask. At number 9 is Manchester Black. He's not your typical bad guy. See, Manchester Black emerged as a response to the changing world of superheroes. See, unlike your friendly neighborhood Spidey, Manchester and his crew, known as the Elite, were ready to cross the lines most hero wouldn't even toe. See, Manchester's backstory is no walk in the park. Growing up with a rough life and the duty to protect his sister, he developed a zero-tolerance attitude towards criminals, preferring to brutally eliminate them to prevent them from ever causing trouble again in the future. It's this ideology that would cause the friction between himself and the Man Man of Steel. In fact, Manchester then went on a salty spree, attacking Superman's professional and personal life, even faking Lois Wane's demise just to prove a point. Talk about a supersized grudge match.
Number 8. Amazo. In 1960, Amazo debuted as a powerful villain in The Brave and the Bold, issue number 30, to challenge the Justice League of America, created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sekowsky. Amazo is no ordinary android though. He possesses technology that allows him to replicate the abilities and powers of the superheroes that he battles. This gives him a significant advantage in combat, making him an opponent to be reckoned with. Additionally, Amazo can even duplicate his opponent's weapons, making him an even more challenging adversary. The Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern make up the roster that Amazo initially faced, and as such, these are usually the power sets he possesses by default. Number 7. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage, also known as Vandar Adge, is a formidable adversary who has been terrorizing the world for over, get this, 50,000 years. He possesses advanced healing abilities and immortality, which he gained after coming into contact with the mysterious meteorite during prehistoric times. Despite not being known for necessarily crazy superhuman powers, he is a brilliant strategist and skilled fighter with vast knowledge in various sciences and forms of combat. Over the course of history, he has faced off against other immortals and reincarnating heroes such as Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Immortal Man, and Resurrection Man. He's also proven to be a recurring thorn in the side of the Justice League. In his quest for power and attempts to defeat the JLA, he has even allied himself with organizations such as the Injustice Society and the Legion of Doom. Beware of Vandal Savage, for he's definitely a relentless and cunning villain who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. And he's got the experience to back it up. Number 6. Brainiac. Brainiac may have been defeated by Superman when he was kicked out of his ship and succumbed to Earth's germs, and yes, that may be the first thing that I personally think of when I think of him, but that one defeat does not define him as a weak villain, especially considering how much he has evolved over the years and how long he's been around. In fact, would you be surprised to hear that Brainiac's strength lies not only in his intellect, but also in his physical abilities? In Jeff Johns' Action Comics 5-part story arc, Brainiac, it was revealed that the previous Brainiac Superman had encountered were more android replicas of the real deal, and that the real Brainiac was far more powerful, both mentally and physically, than all of them combined. This depiction of Brainiac as a formidable foe showcases his true potential and cements his place as a top-tier villain in regards to the Justice League's Rogues Gallery. Number 5. Lex Luthor. Did you know that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster also created Lex Luthor, the notorious villain from DC Comics, just like they also created Superman? Of course, it would make sense they made Superman's #1 villain. He first appeared in Action Comics issue number 23 way back in 1940 and has been Superman's arch enemy ever since. In recent years, he's been portrayed as a power-hungry CEO of LexCorp who wants to rid the world of Superman. He claims it's because Supes is a threat to humanity, but sometimes it seems he's simply jealous of how much people love the Man of Steel. As you can imagine, with his high profile as a supervillain, he's often come into conflict with other superheroes, including Batman, and of course, the entire Justice League team. It's interesting to note that despite having no natural superpowers, Lex is a genius with a knack for business and politics, and has a deep understanding of science and technology. This combined with the tech that he's developed makes him a massive threat to the heroes of the DC universe. Number 4. Anti-Monitor. The Justice League has many powerful villains, but the Anti-Monitor is one of the most terrifying. His control of the antimatter universe and the ability to threaten the multiverse make him an unstoppable force. During Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Anti-Monitor caused massive destruction, and his determination to end everything was truly terrifying. Even after this defeat, the threat remained as Necron actually held his body, taking it and repurposing it to be used as a power source for the Black Central Power Battery. It's clear that the Anti-Monitor as a villainous multiversal threat should not ever be taken lightly. The lasting impact of the Anti-Monitor and his influence on the DC universe will not soon be forgotten, as his influence and interference helped to basically reshape the entirety of the continuity and reality. Number 3. Hecate. While they may have not known it at the time, Hecate was also a very powerful Justice League foe. Here, interactions with the Justice League and her manipulation of them were not even actually recognized by the JLA themselves, but instead were taken note of by Justice League Dark, a somewhat loosely sanctioned magical division of the League that operates out of the Hall of Justice's basement and is led by Wonder Woman. While Hecate in the end would be defeated in the pages of Justice League Dark, this was only possible because Wonder Woman was able to use other, more powerful even villains, if you can imagine that, of the Justice League Dark team to defeat Hecate. Basically like pitting those against one another. Number 2. Starro the Conqueror. Starro can literally conquer entire worlds and has in fact done so before. And on more than one occasion, they have also almost conquered Earth as well. Starro is a giant space starfish who in their first appearance took on the first formation of the Justice League in The Brave and the Bold, issue number 28, where they threatened to, you guessed it, conquer the world! While in the Suicide Squad film, Starro the Conqueror was a cruel nickname given to Starro by the Thinker, who was charged with experimenting on the imprisoned alien. In the comics, it was a name earned by Starro because they had literally conquered so many worlds. Number 1. Darkseid. Jack Kirby, the famed writer, artist, and comic book creator, created Darkseid, who made his first appearance in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue 134 in 1970. Darkseid is a tyrannical ruler of the planet Apocalypse and is depicted as a new god in his comic book appearances. His ultimate goal is to basically gain control over the anti-life equation and to eliminate all hope and free will in sentient beings, enslaving the multiverse in essence. He is considered one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe and is known as one of Superman's most formidable enemies and the Justice League's arch nemesis. Darkseid was originally known as Prince Euaxus, the son of King Yuga Khan and Queen Hegra of Apocalypse. He seized control of the planet from his older brother Drax by eliminating him when Drax attempted to claim the fabled Omega Force, with Euaxus betraying his brother and of course taking the Omega Force for himself. With this newfound power, Euaxus' skin turned to stone and he took on a new name, Darkseid.